2.
Good afternoon. I'm here to show you this little journal that I made while I'm waiting for the glue to dry on my garden journal. I know those of you who subscribe to my channel were expecting the garden journal part 3 as my next video, but I haven't quite finished the 3 of those journals yet to show you things about the binding. This little journal was easy for me to construct because I had already created the cover in the past. I had used this technique of creating a cover for a little class that I was giving at the college for seniors, and all I needed to do was to create the pages for the inside. The cover is actually created from a hanging file folder. I know that y'all have seen those. You cut off this metal portion here, and then when you fold it over at that score line that's already on the folder itself, you have room for a pocket. You can determine the height. The width here is about 6 inches, so if you use an 8.5 by 11 paper, this is perfect because your pages are 5.5 wide, but you get a little drift of your pages in your signature as it gets thicker, and 6 inches is usually about perfect. I covered the journal. I actually flipped it this way and covered the dull outside and kept it shiny inside as my insides without covering them at all. What I covered it with was these guest towels, and I know a lot of people use napkins, and I do too, but most of the napkins that I find that I like are smaller, and the imagery on them is sometimes kind of small. And I liked these guest napkins, well, they call them guest towels because they're so large, and the imagery on them was large. And I wanted to do something that had Paris in it because I was thinking originally about making this a travel journal. And this was the guest towel that I could find, and as you can see, you get 6 of these images to play with. So, you can make 3 journals and have a front and back cover. But you can see that these colors don't go together very well. But that was easily solved after I separated out the layers of the guest towel and just used the top layer, and this was the background, and I cut out this image for the front and the back. I just blended it all together using this distress, I kind of torn that, distress collage medium. It's this tacky glue type substance that has this colorant in it, and when you paint that on, you can see here how it changed the colors and it blended it all together. The other parts of this cover, it has a seam binding closure, simple. I sprayed it with glimmer mist and coffee. There's 4 layers of little flowers from the Recollections collection, and a flat back dark pearl. I think this little chipboard piece is also from Recollections. I know these 2 trims that I put on the side are from Recollections. To secure my pocket, because this heavyweight stuff, when you put things in, it was kind of lifting even with good Aleene's tacky glue. So I used these little rivets and really made that pocket very, very strong. The pages inside the book, the digital collages, come from 2 different groupings that I did. One was for a swap where the lady liked vintage and ladies, and the other grouping was photography and collage that I had used for a travel journal when I went to France. In addition to those things, in here there's some items from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and I'll try to point those out as we go along. But it was postage squares, shabby roses, or some postcards, and then she has a coffee stained lined page, and I use it a lot. I just like the colors in it, and the lines are perfect, and it's just one of my go-to items. So this lady came from Pinterest, and the other imagery is actually from the graphicsfairy.com. This was a flip. The few pieces of scrapbook paper that I used in here are from the Kirby Teasdale collection. So the flip on that side and a tuck spot on this side. I had sprayed some just plain white tags that I got from Staples with lilac glimmer mist. This was some graph paper, vellum paper and graph paper that I had, and I printed on the back of the graph paper some of my writing paper I had created with imagery from Graphics Fairy applied to that same coffee stain paper from Ephemera's Vintage Garden that I was telling you about. I had some bags gifted to me that I really like. These papers here, I use them in other books and I've mentioned them, but they are from Staples. It's the Southworth boxes of paper. Some of them are called resume papers, but they're usually 32-pound weight, so they're a nice paper. They're beautiful writing papers, and they come in colors. This one happened to be called Latte, but they have granite colors, greens, pinks, and I use them in the journals as pages when I don't think that my coffee or tea dye paper quite matches up. And of course this has had a doily edge punch. This is one of the pages that I created with some of my photography from Paris, as well as some imagery from Graphics Fairy. This is the plain Ephemera's Vintage Garden lined page. This is those little postage things that I was telling you about, postage squares. Just made a little writing piece because I wanted something under this clip for this flip. It's a flip on this side and it's a pocket on this side. And I wanted something that just kept it from flipping out while I was working on the book, and then decided, you know, that's a pretty good thing to just include so it doesn't flip out after you start using the book. On this side are those Ephemera's Vintage Garden Shabby Roses, she called this. And they're beautiful little postcards, but I just put them together as a writing spot. Some of this little imagery here I'm just noticing, I think I took that from MBW Encantada or Hollywood Studios. I have several digital image kits from Mischief Circus, and I believe that ribbon is from that grouping, as is this teacup. More of the Kirby Teasdale. Some of the backs of the papers I just sprayed with coffee and the same glimmer mist I used on the tags. Another one of the things I decided to put on the back of that scrapbook paper. This is Ephemera's Vintage Garden lined paper, and then I just added some imagery to the top of it in Photoshop. More of the Paris photography. This is another one of those little postage squares to hold down this flip up that's also obviously a pocket. And what you have here is some writing paper that's just a leftover page folded up and cut down so it wouldn't stick out. More of my collage. More pictures from Paris. On the strings on the middle of the signature, I decided to put these little buttons. I don't know why, I just did that. Sacre Coeur from Paris. This is actually inside Versailles with these ladies and flowers added to it. This is a side tuck and a flip. And again, I used one of those little postage things to keep it all shut. And this is another one of those darling things from Ephemera's Vintage Garden. Kirby Teasdale. Just some Kirby Teasdale leftover paper tucked into the bag. This one, instead of having a tuck on the other side, I just made a pocket and a flip on the same side of the paper. But I did, again, use the postage squares to just be sure that stays shut. And you can see I had printed that, sprayed the back of this Kirby Teasdale paper. More of the Kirby Teasdale paper. I don't know where this was gifted to me, so I'm not sure where this doily comes from, but I love it. It's one of those really big ovals. That pretty lady showing up again. This is the clock from the old train station. It's now the Orsay Museum in Paris. More of my imagery on Ephemera's Vintage Garden page. Kirby Teasdale. And that's the end of the book with a pocket. So I hope that you enjoyed this little journal that I created on the fly. And I will be back very shortly with the completion of my garden journal series. Thank you for watching.